let's make a patchwork teddy bear together. Okay, so it is now time to quilt our bear. So since I'm a long arm quilter, I have two of them, so that's what I'm going to use. But if you don't have a long arm quilter, you can certainly use your standard sewing machine. You know, do lines, do grid marks, do crosshatch, do, you know, just random lines, practice free motion. You can do the options are endless as far as quilting is concerned. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you what I do. And so first of all, I have a piece of muslin that is loaded to my long arm frame. The piece is 54 by 42. And I'm going to roll it. So I might be in and out of the camera here for a second, but I am definitely here. All right, so since I have a ton of leftover batting, I'm going to use some Hobbs 80-20 batting for the middle of my bear. You can use flannel, you can use wool, you can use leftover batting, you can use an extra couple of layers of some old, you know, cotton fabric that you don't like, that you're never going to use, you know, fold it up a couple of times and put it in there. It doesn't necessarily have to be you know, anything special. You can use whatever you have. You can use polyester batting. I used to use a lot of polyester batting, just a low loft polyester. I have some right here, so you can use whatever you have. There's no rules here, so as far as your batting is concerned. So I'm going to stick mine in here. Alright, and now I am going to put my two bear fronts first. Not that that matters, that's just what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put the two long ends almost touching each other so that I don't waste a lot of time quilting in between the two pieces. And then I'm going to quilt those two, and then I'm going to advance it, and then I'm going to put the two backs on there and quilt the two backs. And so I'm not going to pick anything super dense. When I quilted the other ones, I did a pretty dense little circle, and I did a pretty dense crosshatch. For the video's sake, I'm just going to do something that's a little bit larger, just so you can kind of see the differences. And so we're going to get that set up now. So like I said, I'm just going to do the fronts first. I'm not going to use my side clamps. I'm just going to face these down. I'm just going to try to make the tops the same so that it's easier to quilt. Okay, so the tops are all basted. Whoops. Throwing my scissors around. I always realize when I do videos how clumsy I am. I'm throwing stuff around, dropping stuff, losing stuff. I am ridiculous. Okay, So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an area, and I might move the camera a little closer. Okay, so I'm gonna try to have you not look at the back of my head. So we have this loaded here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an area, and I'm gonna use my multi-point. And that's going to create the pattern. I do have a little bit left over on the bottom, and so I will just connect those pieces in the end. When we advance, I'll show you. Okay, so we're going to pick a fun floral design, I think. And let's see. So I have quite a few designs. I was going to look for a daisy-ish one. Actually, I think I'm going to do this ginger flower. So when you first pick out a design, it's the size that the designer created, so you can adjust the size. And so I'm going to make mine 6 by 12, and then I kind of look at it and it's still a little bit too fat. Let's do, instead of 6, let's do 4. All right, so that's going to make each flower about 4 inches around. So we're going to make it 4 by 6 is what we are making the pantograph. So we're going to go to repeat and fill, and that's going to fill in our area. We're going to add an extra piece there and an extra piece there, and then we're going to fill in the gap a little bit. And so don't let me forget 4 by 6. You know what? I better write it down because I will forget. Okay, so now we have that done, and now we're going to crop the outside of it. We're going to baseline it, and then we're going to modify crop the outside. That crops all of it that we don't need. Close the edges, and then we're going to baseline it again. However, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so once we advance, I'm going to have just a little bit left, and the bottom of that's going to be cropped off, and so I'll probably just use this line right here. I'll just go and reposition it so that it stitches out this last row instead of having to recreate another one. And this is just kind of for time's sake. So now we are going to save it. We're going to go to, I have a file that's named Gina, so I can save all of mine. And we're going to do, oops, we're going to do bear. All right, and then we're going to go here. Actually, so I have white thread in here. I'm going to check the bobbin because I can't remember. There's white thread in the bobbin as well, and it's nice and full, so we should be good. I'm going to go here, go to the start. I'm going to go to ProStitcher, and I'm going to hit run. stitch out for a little while, and then I will come back and show you a little update. Okay, we're advanced, so now we're getting ready to do the last little section. Okay, so I added my backing pieces on, and so I have the little tail part at the top, and so the heads on either side. It doesn't matter how you load it. It doesn't matter at all. This is just the way that I've done it. You can turn it any direction. So let's see. I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget. So 4x6. So I went ahead and so I created a multi-point for this bottom, just like you see here on the screen, same way as I did in the top. And then I have changed the size so that my flowers design is 4x6. And then I'm going to go in and repeat it. And so I'm going to fill it, add another row, and then I'll add actually, you know what? Let's see. Let's don't add that row. Let's do that because I don't want it to chop off the bottom of it. So it's just going to go a little bit over the top, which is fine, and it's not going to hit the very, very bottom of the tail, which is also fine. So we're going to baseline it, and then we are going to, we'll save it as Bear 2. So now it's saved, just in case the machine does something weird, we have to turn it off, or who knows. So we're going to go ahead and start it here. And it's going to go over the perimeter a little bit because I didn't crop it off, but that's fine. So we have it on base, so we're going to turn the base off, and then we're going to hit run. Okay, we have our two front pieces cut out, and the reason why I don't fold it in half is because it's just really thick when you do the pieced one. Some of the, to try to fold it and cut through all the layers at the same time, it's just a little bit thick. All our templates are cut out, and what I normally do next when I'm not shooting a video is I take them and I go stitch the darts together. So the back piece has the dart, and you just fold it in half like that, good side to good side, and then you stitch 1/4 of an inch, and then I usually back stitch on both ends, and then it opens up looking like that, and that kind of creates your little behind on the bear. So, and the same thing with the 2 feet. So you'll have 4 darts on all the feet, and you just fold them good side to good side, make a little stitch, back stitch on both sides, and then that's that. And so then once I have the darts all sewn together, then I come back and sew the 2 back pieces and then the 2 front pieces. So I'm gonna go sew those darts, and then I'll show you how to put them together. So if you get confused on which one is which, the back is the one that has the long dart on it. So if you happen to throw them all in one pile and you get confused, the long dart is the back. So that's what we're gonna talk about next, is the back piece. So since we're not sewing eyeballs or doing any of that stuff on this one, we're just going to put them good side to good side like that. And then we're gonna lay our back template onto the top of it. And then we're going to mark the spaces where we're gonna leave it open for the stuffing. And so we're gonna put one right here. And it doesn't have to be exact. I have that so that I can put my hand through it. This is where we're going to be stuffing it, so I have it for that amount so I can put my, so we can do the stuffing. And so if you want it smaller, because you're going to have to stitch that at the end. If you want it smaller, you can do that. But this to me is just a good amount of space. So that's what we're marking on the back side. And then we're going to pin the top. And now it is ready to go to the sewing machine. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sew from here all the way down. We're going to stop at that first pin and back stitch, and then we're going to start again at this next pin and back stitch, and then that will get that part finished. So I'm going to sew that, and I will be right back. If you want to watch me do all of the sewing, there's another video where I just make the 1 yard bear that's much slower, and I go through everything exactly how I sew them. So if you want to see that video, you can check that out also. Alright, so we've sewn the back side. We just did a stitch all the way down, and then we left this spot open for the stuffing. And so if you flip it the other way, that's the back side of the head. And the behind of the bear, that's where he's gonna sit. And so he's already starting to take shape. Okay, so the back's done for now, and now we're gonna work on the front. So what I do for the front pieces is I just lay my template down on top, and then I see where the eyeball spot is, and then I just fold it over, keep my fingernail right there, fold it over, and then I just use a marking tool to mark where the eyeball is. And then that way you're going to be able to cut that. So I'm just going to fold it over where the little mark is. And because it's quilted, it's a little bit thicker than just the regular, so sometimes you'll have to flip it over because it didn't make it all the way to the other side. But just make sure you don't cut too much. But there's our hole ready for our eyeball. We're going to do the same thing with this one. There's our marking. We're going to just do a little snip. And sometimes if the seam is like right there, you might have to do a little bit of maneuvering with your scissors. And we have our little spot there. And then for our nose, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to lay it down, and we're going to see where the mark is. You can make a mark with your friction pen, or you can take a needle and mark that. So you can put it together, and then you can just put your needle in. You'll take your template out. But when you go to the sewing machine, if you want to use a needle instead of the marking tool, you'll just do that, and then you'll stop where your needle is. Okay, so now let's do our eyeballs. So for our eyeballs, we're just going to poke them in that hole we just made. Poke it around through the back side. We're gonna do the other one. There's the hole. Poke it through to the other side. We're gonna use our fabric fusion. I just put a little kind of dollop on both sides. Sometimes it comes out really fast. It's probably more than a dollop, but that's okay. All right, and then you're just gonna push it down until it kind of snaps. And so now you have your eyeballs in place and ready. And now we're gonna do the stitching. We'll do the nose. There's your nose marking, that's right there. So when we get to the sewing machine, we'll have to stop there. And you can put your mark on the outside now so that when you're sewing, you will see it. Okay. Now we're gonna pin our template together so that we can take it to the sewing machine and sew a stitch just like we did on the back. We're just gonna start right here and we're gonna sew all the way down, and then we're gonna stop at the nose, back stitch, move about 1/4 of an inch, start sewing again, back stitch, and then go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so I zoomed in so you can see me do the stitching for the nose. Usually I do it on the other side. I put my pins usually on the other side so I can see, but all right, so you're just gonna start at the top right there, about 1/4 of an inch in. You can do between 1/4 of an inch and 3/8 inch, whatever makes you feel most comfortable. When I get to the blue mark, I stop, I do a back stitch, and then I cut the thread. Then I move just a little bit, then I put my needle back in, sew, do a back stitch, and then continue on. I usually do a back stitch on the neck area as well. Got a little wonky there, but the camera's kind of in my way. All right, so now what we're gonna do is where the spot is, where the nose goes, right there, we're gonna put the nose through the hole. So I'm gonna move back over to the other side where it's probably better light. So see, there's our hole for the nose. Okay, so here's a close-up. Here's the front of the bear. There's the nose spot. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our nose piece and we're going to put it right through the hole that we just left. And you don't have to spin it. You can spin the rest of it in a minute once you get it on there. So we're going to add our glue. I usually try to keep, oops, I got to take the lid off, Gina. I usually try to keep the seam open, but when it's quilted like this, sometimes it's kind of hard. And then you're gonna put your end on there, snap it in there, and I got some glue on my finger. And then once you flip it over, you can kind of move your little nose so that it's going the direction that you want it to. And then that glue will dry, and then the nose shouldn't move. And so then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to clip around the neck area. I usually like to use my little small scissors, but so that it doesn't pull when you actually flip it around. You can cut some little darts out, some little like triangular shapes out, or you can just kind of snip at it. Make sure you don't snip through, and then when you flip him over, the seams should kind of lay a little bit flatter in the front there. So look how cute he is. All right, next step. So what we want to do next is we're going to put them good side to good side and pin them down. And then we're ready to go to the machine, stitch all the way around the whole outside of the bear, and then he's ready to stuff. But I do want to mention beforehand that if you're going to put any kind of embroidery label or any kind of label with a name, now is the time to do that. So so I made a teddy bear with a tooth fairy pouch. It's just a little pouch. A lot of times when I make memory bears, I will take pockets off of shirts and attach them to the fronts of the bears as well. So there's, or you can make a pocket out of the fabric from the shirt if you want to make a pocket. And so I just embroidered the front of this, and then I just put a little backing on it, and then I stitched it on right here. And so you can stitch all the way around if you just want to patch, or you can leave the top open if you want it to be like a pocket. So now is the time to do that. You would want to flatten this out, usually kind of just like flip him inside out like that. And so press the seam down as flat as you can, and then you can top stitch your label right to the top of him. So we're not going to do that today on this one, but now is the time that you would do that. Also, if you're going to put a label into, like a label, a made by you label, I have some little labels that say Thread Graffiti, handmade by Gina Tell, and then you just cut the little piece off and like that. And then when you fold it, you can tuck that into your seams. So right now, when you're getting ready to pin your whole thing, you want to decide if where you want your label to be. If you want it to be in the inside of your leg, you'll want to just put it in there, and you can pin it. You can pin it in place so that you don't forget, and then when you add your back piece on, that will be in there, and so you'll stitch it in as you're going around and stitching the whole bear. Okay, so it's now time to pin the bear together. So you have the bear front and the bear back, and you just want to put them good side to good side. And I'm going to get some pins here, move my little helper over, and I start at the top and I just nest the two top seams. And with them quilted, they're very thick. Well, I shouldn't say very thick, but they're thick. They're much thicker than when you use the 1 yard and you don't quilt it. And so I usually nest the two top seams, then I go down to the bottom and I nest the bottom seams. And I guess I shouldn't even really say the word nest. I just kind of line them up. And so you're basically just pinning at all of the intersections. Then I go around and go to the toes where those dart seams are. And I usually try to keep the pins out of the way so that you don't have to move a bunch of pins around, but honestly there's a ton of pins in here when you're stitching them, and sometimes they poke you and it might be better to move them out of the way, so you'll just have to see. So then I do the intersection there at the legs, and it does not matter, you don't have to do it how I do it. You just basically want to go around and pin at all of the armpits and all the points. And so, oops, I'm crashing into stuff. I ran out of pins. Okay, so we're gonna pin right here, then I pin at the end of the arm. I do also want to mention that sometimes with the patchwork ones, if you have an arm that has a little bit more left over than it should, just take your scissors and just trim that little piece off so that when you're going around and you're stitching, you won't miss that piece. So don't trim into the pattern, but sometimes that just happens from you trimming the outline with the template, and so just kind of pay attention. Most generally it will pretty much match, and then that's where your seam allowance will will make up for any of the imperfections in your cutting. And then just keep pinning, just keep pinning. Okay, so just pin around. See that piece? That one's got a little bit of a spot where I didn't trim it very well. All right, now that's better. And then another pin right there at the hip. And then this pin right here at the toe dart. And then back here where we put our label, that's gonna get pinned, and I'll just use that pin right now. And I'll just pin right through all those layers. It's super thick. I also want to make sure that I mention that, like, say, let's look at that. I don't want you to trim that part off. I want you to push it so that you just kind of make the two pieces meet. Because it's not like quilting where they have to match exactly because you're stuffing it. So if you pull that piece over so that it matches, then it just is going to make like a gap here and fullness. And so in a quilt we don't want fullness, but in this we don't care if there's fullness because we're going to fill it up. So that part doesn't matter. So just kind of make it work, get it to where it needs to go. And then I think there's one little spot down here on the bottom that I forgot to pin. All right, and so now he's all pinned together, and we're going to do the same thing that we did around with the two pieces. We're going to stitch between a quarter of an inch and 3/8 inch around the edge, just enough to make sure that you catch both sides. And since we have batting in this one, it's a little bit thicker than when we use just the regular 1 yard of fabric. So just make sure that you stitch in far enough that you get all your edges. All right, so let's do that sewing now. Okay, so now you need to go around and cut out they kind of just look like little triangles. You can kind of just cut out a little triangle in the bulky corners. Don't cut into your seams. Just like that, and then you can kind of just go like that around some of the edges. So you want to just kind of give it, it'll just help the bear so that it doesn't pull in the corners. So go around and do that in the corners where you see a lot, and then we'll be ready to flip it inside out. We're ready to flip our bear inside out now. So we've gone around and we've clipped some little areas in all the corners. And so here's the front and the back. And then this is the reason why I keep that space to be where it is, so I can stick my arm through it. And then I put my hands up to the top and pull the bear head down through the hole. And so before you do this, you do want to make sure, as you're doing the clipping, make sure that you didn't miss any places going around where you didn't get both pieces into your seam. So just make sure you do that, and then be really careful and gentle as you're pulling this through. Even though you back stitched, it will still rip. So just kind of go slow. Comes with what looks like a chopstick, and usually I think they always used to. I have a bunch left over, and so this is great to put through the hole and to kind of push it through for your arms, to kind of make your seams push out a little bit like that. So anyway, that's a good tool. And so I have it pretty much all done there. And so what the first thing that we're gonna do is, I need to push through that ear, but we're gonna stuff it. And so I went through on a previous video and did all of the stuffing in the exact order that I do it. It's very helpful to do the stuffing in a particular way and not just stuff it, otherwise then it's really understuffed. You can catch that on one of my other videos. I will link it down below so you can find exactly how to stuff it. So I'm going to go ahead and get that stuff now, and we're almost finished. Once you get your bear nice and stuffed, like I probably could have gotten a little bit more into the leg, but you kind of want to squish it forward like that, and so it'll help it kind of stay so that it's not going like that. That way you're kind of pushing the stuffing down into like the bottom thigh area so that it kind of sits a little bit better and it keeps its legs close and its arms kind of going forward. Otherwise, if you don't put the stuffing in the arms just right, it'll kind of look a little funny, but you'll figure it out. Just have fun. Isn't it cute? Oh, I love it. And I made a scarf for this one also. Green and red. Oh my gosh, it's so cute.